welcome back Mr. Steve Houk.
On music. It is going to be a special one, and boy, I am extremely excited about tonight's guest. We will get to introducing him in a moment. I can't wait, but I'm going to give you just take a quick minute or two and give you a couple of quick plugs for some things that I think are so important right now. One of them is the National Independent Venue Association, NIVA. Their website is nivassoc.org. Right now, it's #SaveOurStages. And we're not talking just about music stages, guys. We're talking about comedy clubs. We're talking about theaters. We're talking about small kinds of clubs. This is a really tough time. You got to go on, Save Our Stages, #SaveOurStages at NIVA. You basically fill out a petition form, which is email and address or email and not hardly anything. And that goes right to your congressmen and the legislators. Amy Klobuchar and Senator Cornyn were instrumental in getting this going. Do what you can to go to NIVA as soon as you can. There's also the After Dark Fund. My buddy Mark Seagraves, one of my TV colleagues and obviously a radio guy forever in town, TOP, etc. What an amazing guy. He started After Dark Fund, and I'm going to give them a mention on Facebook. It's After Dark Fund on Facebook, and you can also go through that to snap merch and then buy a shirt. Go to PayPal, give these guys some money, help them out if you can, because right now musicians as well as venues are really suffering. So we're trying to give that mention every single time that I come on here to remind people of that. And then if you want to see some groups, you want to see some people play virtually, some people are breaking out. I know the great Ruthie Logsdon and Ruthie and the Wranglers played out on a big deck to a socially distanced group. You've got people like Dave Chappell and Patty playing. You've got a bunch of people playing. My buddy Eric Scott is playing this coming week in Rehoboth. So that's really cool that they're out. But, you know, people hopefully are staying safe. But go to Live DMV Music on Facebook, and you will see a plethora of live shows, streaming shows you can go to as long as you're feeling safe with a mask and some distance. And remember, support local music as much as you possibly can right now. It is imperative to keep supporting these musicians as we go along, and really try to get out of this in one piece for everybody. Well, 4 years ago, I was asked to sing at a David Bowie tribute shortly after David died at JV's in Falls Church. Anybody who's a musician or a music maven in this area knows JV's, knows Lorraine Campbell. She's been there 72 years. And I was asked to do that show and sang and had a wonderful time. It was a big deal for me to sing there. And little did I know that my guest tonight was there and was impressed enough by a bunch of us to come on and give me an email and say, hey, how about doing this up at the Fillmore in Silver Spring? An incredible experience, to say the least, to be asked to do that for a middle-aged cover band rock singer who had been singing for about 10 years. It ended up being one of the great thrills of my entire life to be able to sing at this David Bowie tribute. And not just because I got to go up and sing on a cool stage, but because I got to do it with my guest tonight, producing and running the entire show with his Bandhouse gigs guys, putting it all together with some of the greatest musicians you'll ever see in this area. It was a tremendous moment. In fact, I think if I can, David, I'm going to run one quick moment of my first appearance at the Fillmore and my first performance in front of my guest tonight.
Please welcome back Mr. Steve Houk.
They always let you down when you need them. Oh, Virgin, it's heaven and it's sweeter than blue sea. She got a police pipe. She got a turn nose. Sometimes I feel like the whole human race dancing for blue cheese. Blue cheese can send me write a poem in a
I mean, you know, for a guy who's played bars with 10 feet long and about 5 feet wide, to be asked to do something like that by my guest and by his team was, again, such an incredible thrill. And he followed it up a year later with me being asked to sing at the Barnes at the Elvis Costello tribute. Those are called Bandhouse gigs, the ones that I was involved in, actually. And my guest tonight has been the staple of Bandhouse gigs for a number of years already. And if you know anything about music around here, these are some of the greatest tributes and ensembles that have ever been put together around here. He was born in Washington, D.C., attended Walter Johnson, has been around this area for his entire life. And one wonderful part of this we'll talk about is that if anybody who knows pizza in this area, my guest's father and family started Armand's, and I'm telling you, I lived and breathed by Armand Sicilian when I was working at Channel 5 for so long, so that's a thrill. But my guest has been a musician for several decades in this area, and again has been a staple in local music presentation and performance with Bandhouse gigs and his own Newmyer Flyer. Let's just jump into it. I am so honored and excited to welcome one of my music mentors of this area and also a good friend and a colleague, Ron Newmyer. How are you, Ron?
Steve, it's great to be here with you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, man. I'm like everybody else, trying to kind of stay sane and kind of figure out stuff to do. I know that you and I talked a little bit about this, but you've had a couple of your Bandhouse gigs shows canceled or postponed, I should say. Other than that, how are you doing with all of this right now?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, I'm completely out of work. Everything that I do to make income is shut down. They say that concerts will be the last thing back. The concerts that I'm involved with Bandhouse and Newmyer Flyer involving 20 to 60 people, that's the last thing of the last thing back, unfortunately. So, but I kind of came to grips with that, and I'm just I'm enjoying time to do things that I don't normally get to. I've messed around with some original songs for the first time in 15 years, and just, like a lot of people, kind of exploring things that you don't often have time for. So I'm lucky and I'm doing well.
I love that. Has there been anything that you've done that you never did before that you adopted? I know Dave Chappell said he was cooking. He'd never cooked before. A bunch of other people like Flo Anito, your pal who's played many of your shows, she started learning different kinds of guitar, like Annie. Anything that you're doing differently or trying to adapt to, or are you just kind of getting through it?
I made toast and I learned an E chord.
You made toast?
I made toast.
Yes. What kind of toast?
It didn't burn either.
Oh, it didn't burn. That's great.
Baby steps.
Oh, that's great. That sounds like Dave. He was like, I'm cooking. I made like salad, or I made something the other day. But well, we've got a tremendously exciting show tonight. People that are tuning in now are going to see some stuff. A lot of them who've sang in some of these shows that they're going to see, but also some really, really neat, never before seen footage of some of your Bandhouse gigs and Newmyer Flyer shows. Really, really exciting stuff. I've been watching them for 2 days, and I'm like, just to have actually sung with some of these people was incredible, but to be able, but we'll talk about that in a minute. You grew up here. You are a Washingtonian through and through. And there's one picture that I remember seeing on your page that I had to show to people. And it's just wonderful. And I don't know if it's your featured Facebook page. Actually, I think it is your featured cover page picture. But it is you sitting on the toilet as a young lad with a cigarette. Tell us briefly about that, and if that was indicative of the Newmyer house.
Multitasking.
Right.
That picture is a tribute to my father, Lou Newmyer, who had a tremendous sense of humor and actually shot a series of pictures posing me with cigarettes as a young child. One of them, I'm peering over the crib where my sister Wendy is sleeping, and I've got this cigarette hanging out of my mouth. And the picture somehow survived, and that's what it's all about.
I love it. And reading the paper too is just as an extra touch. He had a real flair. It seemed as we chatted about beforehand. Seems like you had a pretty tight family going. I love. There's one picture too of the family gathered around a stand-up bass, and that seems to tell some tales about music with the Newmyers.
Well, my brother has done great things playing stand-up bass in a number of bands. I unfortunately managed to somehow lose the stand-up bass in that picture. I actually don't know where it was lost, but I haven't made any progress with the stand-up bass, so I've stuck to the electric. But
Right.
I was fortunate to work at Armin's with my brother Louie, my sister Wendy, and my brother-in-law Cal. And because we were all kind of involved in music and love music, it was very fortunate to be able to kind of, when Louie had a rockabilly show out in Las Vegas, or Cal had a still surfing gig with his Beach Boys tribute band, and they needed to fly out somewhere, we could fill in for each other. And when I had things going on with Nils or whoever, they covered for me. So it was helpful. We all were thought of ourselves as musicians.
Oh, that's beautiful. That seems like a syncopation that really worked well. Speaking of Nils and his brother Tom and that amazing family, I've actually been, obviously been a fan for many, many years of Nils, and obviously a huge Bruce fan. So when he joined, it was like a bonus of bonuses to have him playing with Bruce. I've interviewed him a couple of times. You became dear friends with Tom Lofgren, third grade, I think it was, and then you guys started a band when you were 12. A little bit about your Lofgren-esque history is pretty cool.
I met Tom in third grade at Wingate Elementary School, and he's been one of my best friends ever since. We kind of bonded over the Beatles in 1964, and I think it was actually 1966 when we were in sixth grade. We played our first gig at our sixth grade graduation party. We probably knew 1.5 songs. I recall we knew most of Paint It Black, so we played that 4 or 5 times. And we knew a tiny bit of Tired of Waiting, and we kind of played the first part of that and then got lost and spent the rest of the time standing there with our guitars trying to look cool, waiting for our classmates to rush the stage, which inexplicably they never did.
Right. I mean, well, that relationship too has just stood the test of time. I know that you guys were in the Tom Lofgren band together. I think was that was kind of the first real band you were together with Tom?
Yeah, that was a cover band, and
cool.
It was with Tom Lofgren, Tom Miller, and a couple other buddies. And
where did you play, Ronnie?
We played bars, and we played at Front Royal at Rusty's Hideaway, a notoriously fun, crazy place.
Right.
We played up in Mount Airy at the Windbray and some other places. The most notable gig we did with the Tom Lofgren band, when Seth Hurwitz was beginning, he started by producing a show at the Ontario Theatre called, it was a high school graduation party, and the Tom Lofgren band played there. And also playing there that night was a group called Off Balance that contained several of my future best friends, Chuck Sullivan and Paul Pashota.
Oh my!
Who were in that band, but we didn't know each other at the time. And so they performed that night, and we performed that night, and that was the Tom Lofgren band.
Oh, I love that. And Chuck, who's been a staple of your life, for so long. I know that he was instrumental in so much, and we'll talk about Chuck and some of the guys that are the Bandhouse guys that are so much a part of your life. You did a record with Tom or a band called the New Keys. How did that evolve?
The New Keys was an original project that where Chuck, Tom, and I were all contributing songs. Paul Bell was on guitar, Spencer Hoop was on keyboards, and then later Diane Rosenthal joined on vocals. And we made 2 albums, and we got to play a bunch around the area. We got a bunch of airplay on WHFS and some other local air stations, and we ended up backing up Nils for some gigs, which was kind of one of the high points of it. So we got to go out and play a set of our music, and then Nils would come out and do some acoustic stuff, and then we'd back him up on a full set. And that was how the gig where we backed up Nils behind Bruce Springsteen guesting with us at the Stone Pony came about.
And of course, being a Springsteen fanatic, and I've only been to the Pony a few times and have not seen Bruce play. We went to see a band called Cats on the Smooth Surface, who played there for many times, and I remember camping out nearby and thinking, oh my God, we're going to actually see Bruce play. But what a place to be is near in the Jersey mix at the Pony. What happened with Bruce that night?
It was completely surreal. It was June '89, and we were on a mini tour of East Coast cities with Nils. I think we'd played New York and Baltimore and Philadelphia. And we went up to play Stone Pony, and Nils had an idea that he might be coming, but there's a lot of gigs that Bruce is supposed to be coming to, as you've heard, and he doesn't show. And so, we were excited and thought that he might show, but we didn't know what the deal would be. We played our set. It was a steaming hot night. place was completely mobbed. You couldn't breathe. The lights were as hot as anything I've ever felt.
Wow.
And we heard that he was in the room, but I couldn't see him anywhere. And it was just tremendous energy. We finished our set. We went out the little side door behind the stage to get some air, and he comes riding down the street. And I was just looking at him like, it was like watching Roger Rabbit walk towards you. And I was like, he's real, and I'm going to play with him tonight. It was pretty amazing. So honestly, what happened, I was afraid of embarrassing myself. I'm not up on all of the stuff that he pulls out for bar bands when he's sitting in, and I didn't want to like stumble. So I started suggesting songs to him that I was comfortable with, rather than wait for him. So there's pictures where it looks like I'm giving him and Nils instructions. I'm just trying to avoid embarrassment.
Oh God, I love those. Those are wonderful little moments. You've had, again, a tremendous amount of those as time has gone along. There was one that I thought was unique about performing with Chuck Berry at the Clinton White House. Was that with? How did that happen? Was that with Tommy Lepson or not?
That was with Soul Crackers. Way that happened was Bill Danoff from Starland Vocal Band.
Yes.
Bill was in the Georgetown University class of '68, as was Bill Clinton. And when the assassinations happened and the riots happened, Georgetown University had to cancel a planned graduation party that Chuck Berry was going to appear at, along with the Drifters and the OJs. And so he had told his friends, he said, if I win that election, he said, we're going to have that party on the White House lawn. So when he won, he followed through on it, and they put Bill Danoff in charge of hiring the band. So Bill was a fan of Soul Crackers and thought we would be good to open up the show, back up Starland Vocal Band on Afternoon Delight and Taking Them Country Roads. And Tommy filled in for one of the Starland members, John, who couldn't make it. Tommy sang for John. And then he said they need a rhythm section to back up Chuck Berry. So Chuck Sullivan and I backed up Chuck Berry, which was just unbelievable to do that at the White House.
Man.
I'll tell you a real quick story.
Please.
So we got there in the afternoon, and it was a huge tent set up on the White House lawn. And almost immediately, we saw Bill Clinton in jogging shorts and T-shirt chatting with Chuck Berry. And we look over, and he's chatting, and then Chuck's got to go do something for a sound check, and Clinton's like walking around like, who can I talk to? So we had a good 15-minute chat with Clinton there. And then I go over to meet Chuck Berry, and I've read all the stories about all the things in the past, firing a band in the middle of the show, you know, telling the promoter, you give me $5,000. No, it was $4,000. You give me $5,000. If the band's okay, I'll give you back $1,000. And I was petrified. I was like, I'm not the best. Rock and roll bass, real rock and roll bass is a art. And there's people that do it magnificently, and I'm not one of them. My brother can do it great, but I can't. So I almost gave the gig away. And I was like, no, I can't give it away. But I get there, and Bill Danoff comes over and he goes, hey, let's go over and meet Chuck. So we go over to meet Chuck, and he's sitting there with his piano player, who unfortunately wasn't Daryl Davis on this gig. And the guy's playing piano, and Chuck's noodling on the guitar. This is an afternoon. And Bill takes me over. He says, Ronnie, this is Chuck Berry. Ronnie's going to be playing bass with you tonight. And I stick my hand out, and I'm 4 inches from his face. And I say, Chuck, this is the greatest honor to be able to perform with you in any circumstance. But here tonight, this is going to be one of the greatest nights of my life. It's such an honor. And I stick my hand out, and he looks at me and he goes, sometimes it's better not to meet. And it was probably 0.2 of a second, and it felt like 2 minutes. And I understood what the phrase, my blood ran cold. Man, I had my hand out, and he goes, oh, man. He shakes my hand, taps me on the shoulder. He's messing with me.
He was?
Oh, God, it was unbelievable. He had me so good. I mean, literally, I was just frozen with, oh, my God, it's coming true. It's going to be horrible. But anyway, he was great. He was friendly, and the night was crazy.
It sounds like it. And I've heard some interesting things about people that have played with the Chuck that I've had in the show too. That it's been an interesting kind of dynamic. You began something, I believe it was 2004. So that's 16 years ago. That was called Bandhouse Gigs. It has become a staple in this area. It's become something that I think that you've not only cover band guys who've been able to jump in on a couple of shows, but what a great staple of music for musicians around here, and they do feel honored. I know when they are chosen to play on these gigs, they do feel that they've really come somewhere and how special it is. Tell me a little bit about how that began, how you got to Bandhouse gigs, and why it's so important to you.
Well, it was interesting. I was 50 years old in 2004, and gigs had started to become harder, and getting audiences to pay attention has started to become a lot harder. I'd been in various bands, releasing records and trying originals music and so forth. And, by that point, the writing's on the wall. Well, before that point, the writing's on the wall, whether you're really going to be touring the world or whether you're going to be trying to scratch out bar gigs. And so it was very fortuitous. And what happened was I got a call from Mike Schreiben of the Washington Area Music Association, WAMA, and he called and just said they're doing a timeline concert series, a bunch of different events and musicians that are important in DC music history. Right. And we'd like to put together a Nils Lofgren tribute, and thought you could organize it for us. Would you be up for that? And I asked where it would be, and he said, we're doing it with Strathmore, and this will be outside on the lawn, August 25th, 2004. And I just began to think, wow, that could be fun. I said, are you expecting Nils to play at it? And he said, no, but if he decides to, we'd be delighted. So I was like, well, that's great. So if he doesn't, there's still a show. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do Nils on a show, I got to call the right people. So the first person I called was Chuck, and I said, I got this call from Schreiben and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you want to help me kind of brainstorm this thing? And he said he was up for it. He loved Nils like I have. So, and had played with him with the New Keys with me. And then I called Tom Lofgren and told him about it, and told him, I said, what about like if we did some Grin songs? And he says, well, you got to get Burbrick. So I called up Bob Burbrick and told him about it. And so then once I had Tom and Bob, I kind of had enough to give Nils a call and make the pitch for him, not just to come and be honored, but hopefully pick up a guitar and play a set of Grin tunes. Right. So he was thrilled, and that was the first show. 5,000 people showed up that night. It was a free concert. It felt like Woodstock in Montgomery County. It was a really magical night. And to get inspiration for the show, they had a whole series of shows. And I went to one that was really well done that Bill Kirchen put together. It was a Patsy Cline tribute, and it was in the Strathmore Mansion. Our Nils show was outside, obviously. But Bill had obviously, I think Ruthie was on the show, and his wife, Louise Kirchen, and Marty Braun was on it, great singer, and somebody else. And he had obviously spent some time thinking of that, well, who handles these tunes and who handles the whimsical tunes and so forth. And so I thought, okay, well, take your time figuring out who's going to sing what, make sure you have the right people singing the right song. And I just thought, take this slow and take it seriously. And so Chuck and I would brainstorm these ideas multiple times and talk about all the great songs. Winnowing down the set list was near impossible because there were so many great songs to choose from. Right. But after the show, which was just, like I say, it was just a magic carpet ride of fun. A couple weeks after the show, Shelley Brown from Strathmore called, and we were having a wrap up, and she thanked me for putting the show together. And she said, if there's anything else you want to do, let me know. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know anybody else famous like Nils. But that winter, I had the idea, listening to some band music, I was like, wow, nobody's going to hear the band play all these great songs again. Maybe we could do the band next summer. And I called Chuck, pitched the idea, and he thought it was good. Oh, man. So the second show was where things really picked up. David Dude Sless came on as our stage manager, because the first show I was using Nils' stage crew. And so Dude and Danny Schwartz came in and was our audio-visual liaison. Greg Harden joined us a couple of years later, but Chuck really kind of put together the Bandhouse organization and saw how we needed complementary talent and skills, and figured that out, which left me free to kind of talk to the musicians and figure out who to solicit for the show.
Well, yeah, and that's one question is, how do you go about picking out the musicians you choose? And we talked a little bit about that before, but also, it's a major production to put these shows on. This is not something that just happens. So you really have assembled a wonderful team of people who return, and then also these musicians seem to, having done 2 of these shows, the interaction, collaboration, and the way everything gels by show night, by gig night is incredible.
that really is a tribute to the incredible Bandhouse volunteer team. We have about 15 key volunteers that have been with us for years. We have incredible stage managers like Greg Harden, Tom Friedrich, Ken Farron, Robbie Cooper, and Danny Schwartz. So the people that have really made it possible to do so many of these shows, because I have no technical skill to put any of that together, and all the other volunteers. And the other thing that the volunteers do, which is so great, is they are so kind and so helpful to the musicians that it destroys egos. So one thing that we didn't plan, but it sort of everything with Bandhouse kind of happened organically. We didn't sit down and say, let's do this concert production thing. If Mike Schreiben hadn't called, I don't know that it would have happened. Right. And as it was, it played very well into my personality of gathering people, something that I've kind of always done. And I was telling Tom Lofgren, I remember being in elementary school and putting on a play based on a Christmas serial that I read in a newspaper and assigning the roles. The short, funny kid was this guy, and the tall, brainy guy was this friend of mine. And so I was kind of doing that from early on. I was always the organizer. And so it fit in well there. And the other thing was I wasn't getting all the satisfaction that I needed from playing and trying to write songs. Even though I was in great bands, I'm not a top shelf bass player. I do fine. Yeah. But I'm not Eric Scott, and I'm not Steve Sidley, and I'm not John Previty, and I'm not so many other people. So Bandhouse and producing these shows allowed me to do something that I think I was probably better suited for. Right. Even than play, as much as I love to play, and I'll play until I'm gone. Right. Producing shows has really been a wonderful second life for me, and I think for all the Bandhouse affiliated people.
Oh, having been a part of that, even just the rehearsals, there's so many songs being assembled at these events. I mean, those set lists are incredible, and to be able to mesh everybody and make sure that everybody's popping into the right feel and the right vibe, you guys have to plan that out in advance. And I remember looking down at some of the paperwork and all the little marks, and again, it was spectacular to witness how you guys got through that. I think what we're going to do is we're going to jump into a little bit of video here and give people a chance to kind of assemble a sense of what you've done over the last 16 years with these amazing ensembles. I think we're going to start right off with a piece of really rare video, David. It's a Skunk Baxter rehearsal, and tell us a little bit about this one. I know he ended up playing at the Strathmore gig. And this is Jeff Skunk Baxter, for those of you who don't know, played with Steely Dan, the Doobie Brothers, one of the great session guitarists ever, and actually ended up being a lobbyist for some incredible technology, or it was defense or something, I guess, is what he does.
Yeah, Pentagon stuff.
But how did he jump in with you, Ron? And then we'll roll that in a second.
I was told that Skunk, I knew that Skunk had produced Nils' 1981 album called Night Fades Away. Excellent album. Yeah. And so I knew he'd produce that, but I didn't know that he was in town doing the occasional work with the Pentagon and so forth. And so somebody said, you should see if Skunk Baxter will do it. And I got the phone number and I called him up, and he couldn't have been nicer. And he asked, how it was going to work. And I told him. He showed up at the first rehearsal, and as you'll see in this clip, it was so unbelievably electrifying. The energy from that rehearsal, I think, is a lot of what kind of fueled our desire. Like, this has got to happen more often. Just the excitement that we all felt in the basement that afternoon. This was the very first Bandhouse gigs rehearsal, and Skunk was unbelievable. He had his guitar strap, his police caution tape, and when he wasn't performing on a song, like we had some songs being practiced that he wasn't on, he just sat there reading the Wall Street paper down, come over, do something completely astonishing on guitar or pedal steel, and it was so exciting.
That's fantastic. Well, let's take a quick look at a little bit of Skunk Baxter on the song Damaged Goods at the rehearsal for the first ever Bandhouse Gigs show. Check this out. Oh my God. I mean, we could watch that all day. That must have been incredible just to have him sitting there wailing.
It was unbelievable. I honestly thought of him as such a jazzy player. I didn't know he could shred like Hendrix like that. I mean, he was just uh, just mind blowing.
Oh, that's spectacular. Why don't we do this? We'll look at about a minute of the show that tomorrow night you guys are going to debut this show that we just saw the rehearsal for that you were talking about. The first Bandhouse gig show ever is going to be aired tomorrow on Facebook. You can find it where, Ron, exactly?
It's going on the Bandhouse Gigs Facebook page and the Bandhouse Gigs YouTube channel, and we'll have some of the performers commenting, kind of like a watch party as it unfolds. It's the tribute to Nils Lofgren from 16 years ago tomorrow night.
That's great. Let's take a little bit of a glimpse at that. This is Moon Tears from the Strathmore 16 long years ago as Bandhouse Gigs began.
Anyway, I'm thrilled and honored to be here, and with that, our dear friend Bob Gordon, who passed away in '96, I know his spirit's here with us, and his fabulous son Billy Gordon is going to come to the stage and play a couple numbers with us. Come on, Billy.
Check 1, 2. Pretty good. Yeah, it's fine.
What's next?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Wow, how spectacular that have to be to kick things off with Nils and the Lofgrens and stuff. What a thrill! And you also had Billy Gordon, who was the son of the late Green bassist, right?
That was really great. Yeah, Billy has gone on and he's made his name pretty well in music. He's performed with a band called J. Roddy Walson in the Business, and they kind of a national group. He was great. He was very confident and probably could have played on more songs, but I didn't know before how good he was.
That's spectacular. Let's fast forward a little bit to as we go through some of these. And again, for the people tuning in, these are some things that have never been seen and some that have rarely been seen. So we're going to take short little clips of this to kind of give you again a swath of Bandhouse gigs. There was a wonderful British Invasion show at the Strathmore. John Carroll, who's such a talent. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago with Julia Kasdorf was on and talking about her and John and stuff. Talk a little bit of satisfaction from John Carroll. How did this gig come about? Was anything jump out at you about that?
Well, this was inside the Strathmore concert hall, and
Wow.
it was an unbelievable thrill. I mean, when we went from 3 free shows out on the Strathmore lawn to performing inside the new music center, 2,000 seats, they said, you have to sell tickets for this. We said, okay. And we literally said, what's the cheapest we can sell a ticket for the first show? And they said $7. We said, let's sell a $7 ticket, because we just didn't know if people were going to come inside. And the day of the show, I was in the office and somebody in the production office said, somebody's offering $100 for a ticket. And I said, I think we're in. So
Wow.
It was a big thrill to be inside the music center. And, we knew that we had to pick up the pacing of the shows, not being outdoors. People weren't just relaxing, lounging around, talking to their neighbors. So it stepped things up quite a bit, and it was really good for us in terms of growing. Bandhouse has always tried to kind of keep raising the bar for what we've done before and keep moving it forward.
Absolutely. Let's watch a little snippet here with John Carroll nailing Satisfaction right here.
Let's make some special sauce, Brian. 1, 2, 3, I can't get no satisfaction. I can't get no good reaction. 'Cause I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and I tried.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Boy, he really ripped that up. That's always a fun song to do in any band. One of my favorite clips I think that I've seen was also from 2010. And what a wonderful group together, as well as and your buddy Tom Lofgren getting together for the British Invasion tribute. I think it's the same show actually, right? As the Satisfaction. And All You Need Is Love. I mean, you can't beat that for an encore probably, or a finale, I would think.
We felt we had to start and end with the Beatles. That we broke up the British Invasion into 1964 through 1966, and we've since done 2 more eras of the British Invasion groups. So we kind of started with a Beatles song, and we said we got to show the progression from 64 to 66. So we opened with She Loves You, and we closed with All You Need Is Love. And it was pretty great feeling seeing string players and horns and all the singers and everybody standing up on stage. It was one of our better finales ever, I think.
I love that. Let's watch just a little bit of All You Need Is Love from that same amazing British Invasion show. Tom Lofgren on lead vocals.
help us sing along. Come on now. You all know the words, I know. Come on, y'all, get up, get up. Put your hands together. Baby, everything is all right. Uptight, out of sight. Baby, everything is all right. Uptight, out of sight. I'm a poor man's son from across the railroad tracks. Only shirt I own is hanging on my back. I'm the envy of every single guy. 'Cause I'm the apple of my girl's eye. When we go stepping out on the town for a while. Money's low, suits out of style, but that's all right.
Stevie Wonder medley, which was a couple years later with Tommy Lepson and everybody. That was spectacular. I think what we're going to do is we're going to revert back for a second because I love that All You Need Is Love clip.
Sure.
Let's drop in All You Need Is Love and check that out right now.
If you're ready, Tom Lofgren will take it away.
Thanks everybody in Strathmore for having us in again.
There's nothing you can do that can't be done. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. you could do, but you could learn how to be you in time. It's easy. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love is all you need.
Oh man, Ron, I love that. That is one of my favorite clips of the whole bunch. Is Tom singing that? What a great. Anything else you remember about that gig in particular or that moment?
It was a tremendously. It was our biggest show to that point. I think we had 65 people on it. We had an amazing, I think, night before the show rehearsal in the lobby of Strathmore, because we had literally so many people we couldn't even quite get it all in at the Bandhouse that night. And it was a 2-night show. It was our first 2-night show. We knew it'd be very popular, and it was a really memorable, one of our best shows, I think, still.
Oh, that's fantastic. You had one come up the next, actually a couple of years later. We saw a little bit of the Stevie Wonder clip, which was wonderful. I love Tommy. He was on the show about 3 weeks ago. What an amazing guy he is on all fronts. But also the rest of the band that played that song. May 2013 was, I think, your first stab at what you call Newmyer Flyer. It was at the Hamilton of all places, and it was in this Dream Discs phase you began to get into, where you did this particular show. You did Moondance and the Wild, the Innocent, the E Street Shuffle. How did that evolve a little bit on Newmyer Flyer, and also this kind of, instead of being a kind of a genre thing, actually doing albums?
What happened was, hold on one second. Yeah, what happened was I was enjoying putting these shows together, but Bandhouse is such a big deal with 15 volunteers involved and 5 producers, including myself, that we only do 2 shows a year. And I was kind of like, there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to do tribute shows to that I'm not sure everybody in Bandhouse is going to be on board. The Everly Brothers, Weather Report, Burt Bacharach and Hal David.
Right.
And then I thought, there's albums. I'd like to do the whole record. I thought that would be kind of neat to do 2 albums by different artists on the same show that kind of had some linkage, but would give you a bit more variety than just doing one artist. So
right.
The first show I started with, I sat down with Tom Meyer from the Hamilton and told him about it. And he liked the idea. And he said, so a Van Morrison album? I said, yeah. And he goes, you picked it out? And I said, yeah, I already know what I'm doing. He goes, I hope it's Moondance. I said, it's Moondance. And he said, you're not going to do the Springsteen album I want to hear. And I said, I don't know. I said, which one do you want to hear? And he said, Wild, the Innocent, E Street Shuffle. And I said, you're in luck.
Oh man, God, he nailed that. I love Tom and David Moran and Daniel Schwartz, of course, one of your cohorts there for a long time. And
yeah, Danny was instrumental in all the Hamilton shows that I was able to do with Newmyer Flyer. Just a huge help.
He's pretty incredible. Here's a little bit of a chunk of E Street Shuffle from that show. Again, a rare clip. This is Brian Sims on lead vocal, and boy, a song I love, an album I love. Here's a little E Street Shuffle for you.
Detroit muscle, you're doing the E Street Shuffle. Now those E Street rats and twilight dual flashlight phantoms in full star street. Down fire trails and silver nights with blind bells, pledge sheets exchange. On the newsboys say the heat's been bad since Power 13 gave the troopers everything he had in a summer scuff. And Power's girl, little angels on the corner keeping them crazy boys out of trouble. Little angel steps a scuffle like she ain't got no brakes. She's stepped in compound down in Lover's Lane. She lays all those younger boys insane. Yes, you do, yes, you do. Little angel says, oh, everybody fall in line. Everybody fall in line.
to sing for anybody, let alone, Bruce even kind of rips through that live. Brian did a beautiful job. That's fun.
Brian's an amazing singer. Yeah, yeah. There's so much talent around the Baltimore, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. It's always astonishing to find out how many more people there are that are really, really talented. But Brian Sims, John Carroll, people like that, yeah, they can do anything.
That's fabulous. I love seeing that. One clip I really love too was from a George Harrison tribute you did. Margot McDonald singing the beautiful "All Things Must Pass." Was that a tribute that was geared towards after he passed, or was it something that was already in your MO?
It was. I think George died in 2002, and
he did.
Right after he died, I think we did a little short 4-song George tribute at a Soul Crackers gig as an opening act. And so always loved George's songs. And that was a Bandhouse gig show at the Hamilton, actually. What that was, funny thing about that, we did that originally at the Barnes and Wolf Trap. And we put it on sale in September. The show was to be in March or April of the following year. And it sold out in one day. We'd never seen anything like that happen. I mean, we've been fortunate that the shows have been very sold well, but nothing like one day. So they added a second show, and that sold out in about a month. And so we actually did 3 shows of the George Harrison tribute, and the third was at the Hamilton. And so that's the clip that you got of Margot.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's a little bit, again, of George Harrison, "All Things Must Pass," Margot McDonald on vocals from that is such a beautiful version of that. She just does a beautiful job, doesn't she?
Margot's absolutely amazing. I think she was 18 when she first was on a Bandhouse show as the Joni Mitchell tribute at Strathmore, and we've used her for quite a few shows. She's very versatile and great to work with.
Yeah, that's just and that's not a easy song to nail. Right. Really, I love it. We're going to skip ahead a little bit to 2016. This was the gig that changed my life, but it was one of the great experiences I've ever had, and again, become friends with a lot of the musicians that were at that gig and played in subsequent gigs, and then I've had them on my shows or interviewed them. The Sidleys being one of them, Eric and Flo and people like this. This was a killer version of Fame. With Akua doing it, that Bowie show really seemed to be on fire.
It was a really, really memorable night. It was one of the only times we've done a tribute to somebody right after they passed away. But I'm glad we did, and it was a great place to do it at the Fillmore. It's such a great rock and roll room, and Akua was absolutely incredible, along with the Sidleys up there and a bunch of great musicians.
Yeah, it was spectacular. I loved every second of it. Let's take a little bit of a blurb of a little bit of David Bowie's Fame. Oh man, Ron, the chills I get seeing any part of that show. And I can even in my mind envision walking down those stairs to the backstage area, and your pep talk that you give to everybody before you go in, and wow, what
you passed the audition, Steve. We had you on the Elvis Costello tribute, and you did great on that.
That's wonderful. Well, I remember finishing my first song, Ashes to Ashes, and walking off, and I thought I was on another planet. So what an amazing show. The next clip, we got a couple more, is what we were talking a little bit about, going a little bit different with one of my favorite musicians of all time, Burt Bacharach. And Hal David and Burt, what an incredible team. All McCartney and Lennon and McCartney worthy, practically. Julian Nixon did just a wonderful ode to this song. That show must have been a thrill to do for you.
It was one of the hardest things to put together. And I should point out, I am no musical director, so I'm really reliant on the abilities of people with much more developed skills than myself to make these things work as well as they do. And the band I put together for this show was really spectacular. Julia is always just amazing to work with. And I'd seen her do a scaled down Bacharach show. I had it in mind to do a Bacharach show anyway, because we did one song at the British invasion. But I was like, that one song was hard, doing a whole show, very hard. And when I saw her do a scaled down thing, I said, if we add strings and horns and some great backup singers, and I tweak the set list, I'll have what I need. And so we've done this show about 7 times now, and it gets better every time.
Yeah, I've got to catch one, because that music. My parents were huge fans, and then I became a fan myself. This is a excerpt of a beautiful song by Burt and Hal called "Walk On By."
If you see me walking down the street, I start to cry. Each time we meet, walk on by, walk on by. Food is pride, that's all that I have left. So let me have silence, 'cause each time I see you, I break down and cry. Boy, walk on by, don't stop. Walk on by, don't stop. Walk on by. Now say that I just can't get over dizzy. And so if I sing, we're coming to walk on by, walk on by. Through this pride, that's all that I can bear. So let me have silence, 'cause each time I see you, I break down and cry. Boy, walk on by, don't stop. Walk on by, don't stop. Walk on by, don't stop. Yeah.
Anytime I hear that music, anywhere. But what a beautiful job Julia did, and everybody. That is spectacular.
It felt like a little mini orchestra, and it's one of my very favorite shows. Every time I hear it, I'm just. Somebody made the very wise comment. They said, "I figured out a way to hear all of my favorite songs played by the greatest musicians in the area."
Oh God.
It's kind of what it is.
Yeah, it is every single time, and we'll go out with our last clip is from 2017. It is everybody in this who you gather to do these Beatles oriented shows. This was a specific McCartney tribute at the Hamilton, but what a thrill it is. I sang at the Jaimin Java one about 2 years ago, and that was just an incredible thing. I think there was 60 songs or something on that set list. This was spectacular. It must have been wonderful with Todd and Cal and all of those folks.
Yeah, Cal can do some Beatles, and Todd and Tom Lofgren, and this was it was a long time. We've done some Lennon shows, and I was like, I got to get to a McCartney show.
That's great. Here's a little bit of from the 2017 Hamilton Paul McCartney tribute, Band on the Run.
And the chain of
say the same. We're searching everyone for the band on the run. Band on the run. Band on the run. Band on the run. Well, the undertaker drew a heavy sigh, seeing no one else come, and the bell was ringing in the village square for the rabbits on the run. Band on the run. Band on the run. And the jailer man and Sailor Sam were searching everyone for the band on the run. Band on the run.
You know, what a wonderful way to kind of sum up. You know, if anybody, and we have a really wonderful audience, Ron, I can see it as we've gone through here, to be able to watch that swath of music that you have put together over these last 16 years. What a collection, and what a great way to end it with Cal, Todd, and Annie and the folks. That must be an amazing experience still to put these shows together for you, Ron.
I feel like the luckiest guy in the world, honestly. I have so much fun, and I get working with different people every show keeps it very fresh and exciting. And I move across all kinds of genres of music, and it's been a real thrill. I feel very fortunate to be doing it.
Well, and it's not over. It seems like it's stalled,
Right.
and it is like everybody else. The last one you did, I think, before the pandemic was the Weather Report tribute for Newmyer Flyer, wasn't it?
Yeah, something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I put together an incredible band with Chris Fisher, Al Williams, Eddie Montalvo, Darren Blessman, and Scott Ambush on bass. And they're unbelievable. It was a fun show.
That sounds it. And I know that it was a disappointment about the Warner show recently, but again,
Next summer.
You'll be back, and we'll all be back and putting this together again. Ron Newmyer, I can't thank you enough, man. You know, not only for bringing me on to sing with your incredible ensembles, but also just taking the time to review your life and career with me, man. It was a blast.
Thank you for having me on, Steve. It was a real pleasure, and a great thrill to get to work with all these great musicians. And as I say, you deserved it. You earned it.
Well, thank you so much. It's still, I still pinch myself, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. And to be able to sneak in that clip earlier was a shameless plug. But again, thanks so much. We'll be in close touch, hopefully, and as long as I'm doing the show, which is hopefully a long time, we'll be back on this together, and we can talk about some of the live gigs you're going to be doing.
Yeah, that sounds great. Don't forget to check out the Nils tribute tomorrow night on the Bandhouse Facebook and YouTube page.
Yeah, just about to plug that. You know, the culmination of tonight also fits perfectly into tomorrow and the Bandhouse Gigs Facebook page, where you can see that entire Strathmore show with Nils, Tom, Ronnie, the rest of the amazing Bandhouse Gigs folks as they kicked off this. It's going to be a legacy for, you know, forever. I think it's going to go on for a long time. Thanks again, Ron, very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Coming up on Living on Music, I know Ron mentioned this gentleman a little while ago, and boy, am I excited to have Daryl Davis on my show next Monday. Daryl is an accomplished, not only a recording artist, but also an author, an actor, leader of the Daryl Davis Band, a civil rights maven too, and we'll be talking about some of that he has done. I was going through the pictures of Daryl, and some of the pictures of him and Ray Charles and Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee and things like that were just a blast to look at. So that's been fun. We have September 7th is the great Cleve Francis. Cleve and I have talked a lot since I was supposed to sing at the Birchmere behind him. Another dream come true for this middle-aged cover band singer, and that got blown up by the pandemic. But I guess I'll be doing it next April with Cleve at the Birchmere. But Cleve is an accomplished singer, was a 90s country music star in this region and in a lot of the country, actually, and decided to make another path and choose cardiology over full-time music. But he comes to the Birchmere every year and has great stories about his life. On September 14th, somebody Ron Newmyer knows well, the great Ruthie Logsdon will be joining me from Ruthie and the Wranglers, one of the area's most revered and durable singers, has been around for so long. Can't wait to have Ruthie on. I had her keyboard maven, Bill Starks, on a few weeks ago, and can't wait to talk to Ruthie. And then on September 21st, we have Tammy. Tammy has been around for about 20 years. She's a singer-songwriter. Her music is extraordinary. She's done an EP during this pandemic that really was geared towards finding comfort in music, but she has been around a long, long time. In fact, she was doing stuff back in the middle of the 2000s where she actually was 11 on the Billboard charts. She is a wonderful musician. We will be having Tammy on September 21st. Real quick, this week on ZTV, tomorrow night on Reading, Writing, and Ralph Peluso welcomes Sandra Perez Glushenkoff, who is the author of a very cool book called Francisca's Box. So please come on and listen to some of these people talk about these books. Go get the books and read them, and you'll love every second of it. Wednesday at 7, Jane Collins asks 10 questions of Ali Barbaro, who is in hunger-free Alexandria. So you'll want to catch that. And Thursday at 7, the Virginia Amos Show. So we'll always have Virginia on Thursday nights. And Lucella Flaherty is always around, always going live, always showing us what's going on out there. And it's always wonderful to see her stuff. Living on Music is a production of Zebra Press. The executive producer of Living on Music is David McClure. Our publisher is Mary Wadland. You can visit the Zebra at zebra.org, as well as on the Good News Zebra Press Facebook page. What you want to do is get an edition of August 2020's Zebra newspaper, which is online, but also you can get it delivered in person if you check it out. But it's all over Alexandria, and it's some wonderful stories about people that you may know, and even if you don't, this area has got some stories that, again, you don't hear too often. So please go check out the Zebra on zebra.org. Again, next Monday at 7 live. It is Daryl Davis, the great Daryl Davis, will be joining me on Living on Music. Thanks again to my friend Ron Newmyer. What an amazing look back at Bandhouse gigs. I just had a blast with him. Remember, folks, as you go along each day, pandemic or not, remember, be the good news in someone's life.